welcome to the SBOA virtual happy hour for Halloween, where we're going to tell you all of the self-storage industry horror stories that all of us have encountered. And if you want to share yours with us as well, please put it in the comments or chat us here live on our Facebook channel. So I'm just going to go around the room real quick and everybody can quickly introduce themselves or who they are for the day. So my name is Miss Social Media. Thank you for joining us today. And to my left, I have...
Hello. I don't have a cool name like you and Holly. Just Iris, the gypsy fortune teller.
Ooh, that's a cool name. I don't think there's anything wrong with that name.
After I get married, my last name will actually mean gypsy, so it's appropriate.
Wait, say that again. Your last name will be Gypsy?
It means gypsy, yeah.
Oh, that
is cool.
That is cool. That is cool. And then I have Halloween over to my right, or Maleficent.
Hi, Holly Fiorello with Call Potential. And I'm Maleficent today, I guess.
Love it. They love it. All right, Mr. Mooney.
I'm Jim Mooney Jr. I'm Vice President of Operations for Freedom Storage Management, and I'm living in a spooky house right now. So, but I got to represent my Phillies because we're going to win the World Series tonight. Game one anyway.
Game one, yeah, let's go Birds.
Go Birds.
Go Birds, go Phils. Things cutting off the circulation to my head.
Oh, Holly, that does not look fun.
It's not. It's latex and it's very tight. I have very long hair.
Oh, and you got a lot of hair. A lot of hair. All right, Chad, you're up.
Hello, my name is Chad Lumberg. I am the managing partner of the Storage Group based out of Fruitport, Michigan. And thanks for having me again today, Jessica and Iris.
Of course.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, we wanted to just do something fun. We haven't done all of our events are usually educational. Sorry, guys, there's no self-storage education today. Well, maybe there is within these horror stories. I'm sure that you'll learn some things to do and not do by the experiences of the others on the call. So, Chad, what are you, the great pumpkin today?
I am. I got pumpkins. I got spider webs. I got witch hats. A little bit of everything.
I love it. I love it. All right, next up, Alex.
Oh, I gotta get my full because I can't see otherwise when I put these on. Actually, because it actually is too bad. My name is Alex Herbs with now the Storage Mall Management Group. I'm the Business Development Vice President over there. So for all your third party management needs and across the Midwest and Northeast. And yeah, I'm very mad at Jim still because his Phillies did beat the Cardinals just a couple weeks ago. So thank you for continuing to rub that in, Jim. I appreciate it.
No, and then Alex, Alana, and I recently were in Salem together, and it was freezing, I thought. And Alana took us on this 5,000-hour ghost tour, it felt like. And Alex and I dipped out and went to the bar while she finished.
It was the longest ghost tour ever, to the point of, yes, she took the extended version too. So then Jess and I said, nope, we're out. We're going to the bar.
My friend quite literally ghosted me. Just
Yeah.
Now you can just hang up right now, Alana. Just cut it off right there. That was your best tip of the day.
Mic drop. Yeah.
And she's done. Awesome. Alana, how about you?
So I'm Alana Ross. I'm with StorageAuctions.com. Jessica can attest to this. I'm a witch naturally, so you should just be scared of me. This is my costume. I'm currently on location at a wedding, so I'm multitasking today.
Yeah, we're all, again, this was just to be fun, something fun to do. And yes, I can attest to the fact that Alana is a witch because we were in a spooky store in Salem. What is that thing called, Alana? A pendulum?
It's a pendulum.
Yeah. And boy, did that sucker listen to everything she was asking it. And it was like going berserk. So I don't know if anyone knows what that is. The little thing that swings and you can tell it to show me yes, show me no. And hers was on fire. So she kept asking all these questions I wanted her to ask for me. I was just like, okay, I need you to go away from me now. You're starting to freak me out.
The weirder part was we went to a psychic afterwards and she does the card reading and everything. She's like, well, you are gifted with our ability. I was like, oh no, don't tell Jessica.
Yeah.
She'll never come around me again.
That's like good vibration, good energy going on over there. All right, so who wants to kick it off with their first horror story? I'm sure this group's got some massive horror
All right,
stories.
Alana, you got to go with the one we teased them on yesterday.
Yeah. So we'll start with Mr. Mooney, who did something to me that I never thought I would ever do. Sold a unit on my website, and all of a sudden, like a week later, I get a newspaper article. Hey, this would be funny if this was on your site. And I look and I'm like, oh my God, I do know that storage facility name. And I was like, I think it's one of Mr. Mooney's. Jim Mooney made me a drug dealer. He sold almost $1 million of marijuana in a storage unit, vacuum sealed in totes. And the guy who it was his unit got arrested, and his exact quote to the police was, man, I wish I would have remembered that was in there. So
He only owed us $297.
Oh,
He's gonna owe a lot more than that now, right?
Wow.
how do you misplace that much marijuana?
I mean, they were all vacuum sealed. The black totes with the yellow lids, they're stacked up nice and all. I mean, I was like, oh, we're going to make money on this one. And the buyer came back in and said, I think we got a problem. And we walked up and like, oh, crap.
Well, at
And
least they
that's
were
what-
organized with their drugs in a nice tote and stuff. Like, at least they had it all organized together.
It was the largest drug bust ever in New Oxford Township. Ever.
Really?
oh my God.
And
Congratulations.
they actually turned it in. Say most of our buyers would have just let that roll and be like, finders keepers.
Mm.
Oh my gosh.
Most of our buyers would have just let that roll and be like, finders keepers.
Yeah, sure.
If any of our speakers have the Facebook link up, you might want to mute it because there's a 20-second lag.
Yep, I just muted.
I muted mine too.
Hi, Troy. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Max. Hi, Alyssa. Hi, Scott. Hi, Dave. I got everybody.
So if you want to do individual story, I will start with mine just in case they call me back to this wedding early. I don't think they will, but I'm going to set the bar real high. So I will tell
Always
mine
do.
first.
You
I know.
will.
We're going to play limbo. I'm going to start off high and y'all can just go lower. How low can we go? So I will start off. My story is 5 years ago. I got a phone call to head out to Brooklyn, New York for a catastrophic loss for water damage. I was on the insurance claim side of things. It was an old Tasty Cakes factory. First off, they didn't have an alarm on their water system. So a pipe burst and that water ran for 9 hours because no one knew it was happening. Second off, being that it was the old Tasty Cakes factory, they never plugged the conduits that went floor to floor. So the water was draining into random parts of the building and the floors lower below it. So this is a 2,000 unit facility. 1,800 units were damaged for water. With a lot of water, to the point where the basement actually flooded up to the ceiling. The elevator shafts were flooded. Everything was pretty bad. The operator was scared to call us as the tenant insurance. So Brooklyn in July was a little humid. It created mold from floor to ceiling in every single one of these units. And how hard the water was going, it actually washed the skin off of the dead rats everywhere. So we were finding rat bones everywhere. So I painted the picture of how it looked. We called all the tenants to come check their units, and the ones that did not, we had to cut the locks. Well, I happened to be inventorying a unit in the basement, and the tenant showed up, thought I was robbing him, so he closed the door and locked me in and left. I had no cell service. I was in a basement. I was stuck there for a few hours. So yeah, technically one of the self-storage tenants held me hostage, came back with somebody else to confront me because they didn't speak English. But yeah, I was locked and held hostage by a tenant during a claim. He did want to file an insurance claim. I did let him know that I would have to inform the federal government because the unit was filled with bootleg DVDs, fake Jordans, and fake Louis Vuitton purses. So yeah, I got held hostage by a storage tenant.
That's pretty scary.
Yeah.
It was more scary that I had no cell service and I was stuck down there. Like I couldn't get out of that unit.
Did you press
It was
kidnapping
completely
charges?
dark, right? If it was
I could-
closed.
It was closed. It was closed, locked, closed. He locked me in that storage unit. I was banging on the door for quite a while. No one could hear it because I was the only one working in the basement.
Mm.
So yeah, it was pretty bad. I didn't want to touch anything because it was all covered in mold. So yeah, I got stuck there. And the worst part was, this was a very bad part of town. During that day, we also had another tenant came in who was delinquent, had an overlock. He would have been one of my customers now selling his stuff. But he came in with bolt cutters and he was tapping on the bulletproof glass of the storage manager's window, informing her he would murder her family if she did not let him in his unit. And we're pretty sure that manager, had a side job. She would come back a little disheveled and she would disappear for like an hour and a half. And then she'd show back up. She was a little scantily clad as far as her outfit went. So we weren't quite sure what she was up to, but I know Jessica will appreciate this part as SBOA has tenant insurance. That storage facility had put all the insurance in as fees. So the tenant insurance side of it, we never actually got the money and the manager was pocketing most of it.
Mm.
But we covered all the claims. It was a
Interesting.
hot mess storage facility.
That's what's so funny. It's like layers on that. Like it was all from
Yeah.
a giant flood that flooded the whole building. Then you got locked in. We had a tenant whose ex-girlfriend locked him in the unit. So we thought it was him breaking in, but when we kept watching the video backwards, because we thought we caught him, it actually was him trying to kick the door back in because he just kicked the door down to try and get out. So we thought it was him trying to break into the unit. It was him trying to correct the unit because he had to kick it open to get himself out, and then he was trying to kick it back in, which obviously did not work. So you could have just done that, Alana. You could have just kicked it open.
Yeah, I could have probably tried, but
Could you
Was
climb over the
not- I
top
really-
of the mesh?
no, it was no mesh.
Really?
No,
That's a fire. That's a fire hazard.
It did have the fencing mesh on top, but I would not have been able to fit over. Maybe if I was like 50 pounds lighter, I could have, but it was like 6-inch gap. There was no chance I was fitting my big old self through there. So it was a bad situation. Thankfully, he did let me out when he came back with somebody.
Out? Like, what did you say when you got? He would have got a throat punch from me the second I got out that door. Like,
Well, there were some descriptive words that were used when I did get out of the unit.
Proud of you.
But his friend was explaining very quickly. They thought I was breaking it. They thought I was robbing them.
Interesting. Hey, audience that is out there, I see a lot of people watching. If you want to come up live with us and join in and tell your story, I did put the Zoom link in the chat or in the comment section. So please come tell us your stories as well if you want to. Well, Alana, we're happy that you're alive in the station unit.
And I still go into storage units. So, I apparently didn't learn my lesson.
Apparently not. All right, who's up next?
I
Chad.
got one that's going to make everybody laugh. So
Jim.
about 10 years ago, I'm working in Maryland and doing a walkthrough. We're in outside Baltimore, climate control, really nice facility. Doing a walkthrough with the manager. We find a unit door that's unlocked. And I said, what's going on here? He goes, I have no idea. So we look around. There's nobody around, no cars. We go to open the door, and there was a man and a lady sitting on the couch in the unit. Thankfully, they were dressed. But the funniest part was he said, please don't tell my wife it's her unit.
Oh no.
Oh.
I'm like, get out. Just get out. Just leave.
Out of here.
I'm thinking to myself, okay, so he's okay, whatever. But what kind of woman goes on a date to a storage unit?
Well,
I have something similar
That guy,
happen.
apparently.
go ahead, Chad.
Hey, Chad.
One of our maintenance technicians, he was my sister's daughter's boyfriend. He's 17 at the time. started working for us. Was doing unit checks. He opened a unit and they were naked this time though. And he's like, you got 5 seconds. And he was pretty sharp. He's like, you guys have got a minute to get dressed and get out of here. And the guy was like flabbergasted that I kicked him out. I'm like, he was a pain to begin with. And then with this, and then I'm like, how am I going to explain this to this employee's mom? He's barely 17. I'm like, yeah, if your husband or wife or girlfriend or boyfriend take you to a storage unit, you need to up your ante a little bit because go to our motel or something, but not a storage unit.
There's worse out there.
Oh.
Oh, thanks, Jim. Yeah, Jim likes to pick on my dating life because it's basically non-existent, or when it doesn't.
It's funny as hell when you make those posts.
Yeah.
In Orlando, at it was Sureguard at the time before Public Storage bought them out. One of the properties the manager noticed that the same tenant was opening the gate multiple times during the evening. And when they played back like the video footage, it was a woman on rollerblades, and she was rollerblading up, putting the passcode in to bring her Johns into her unit to run her business, and then letting them go back out all night long. That was her, instead of a hotel room, it was her storage unit. So those kind of data type situations where you can see how many times someone's accessing the unit is probably worth paying for in cases like that. It made me laugh though, and obviously I have not forgotten that story.
That's a great story. Good. Getting exercise while escorting.
Rollerblades.
I
That's
mean,
a hustle.
Right?
okay. This whole idea, actually, we should thank Halloween for.
Yeah.
Holly and I were sitting next to each other at the Northeast Self Storage Association show a few weeks ago. And Charlie Fritz, who else was on that panel?
You have to tell his story.
I hope I remember correctly. And I wish he would have come to this because it would have been a good one. If I'm remembering correctly, Charlie's story was a lady, they're at their facility one day and like major authorities start showing up like in abundance. And they're like, we need to get to this unit, this, that, and the other. The manager or owner's like, well, why? Whatever. Long story short, this lady that was on her deathbed, I guess, had a moment of conscious got her, or she wanted to like reconcile the situation. But before dying, she sent a letter to the authorities letting them know that her ex-husband was chopped up and stored in a deep freezer in this unit and had been there for the last like 16 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So needless to say, they go in and get the deep freezer, and lo and behold, she wasn't lying. And it's something too, like, I guess, obviously they were divorced and the children had been asking, like, where is our dad? And she just played it off like, he doesn't want to be in your life anymore. He's not in our lives. Well, yeah, clearly he's not in anyone's life.
Well, thank God to disclose that before he ended up on my site and I sold dead body parts or something.
Oh, could you imagine, Alana, like seriously though, could you imagine like it wouldn't have gone that way and it went to auction? But this lady was like religiously paying this unit on time for like 16 years. There were no triggers that at any point that anyone in the facility needed to go in and access this unit. Nothing, no smell. Which I asked the question, I'm like, God, you couldn't smell it after 16 years? Those deep freezers must be sealed tight. So Jim, I know you always say you can hide a dead body on the second page of Google, but it sounds like a deep freezer doesn't do a bad job itself either.
You'd be amazed. I would say 1 out of every 10 units has like cremated remains in it of some sort. A dog, a cat, your grandma.
That's it. Ooh, smell. Jennifer Duncan says, ooh, yeah. Guys, come join us if you want to. Scott, Jennifer, I see Damon's on here too. Alyssa Quill was on that panel. Yes, she was.
It looks like we might have a couple who did. Looks like
Yeah.
Dave and Michelle joined us.
Dave, if you want to share your cameras, if you can, we would love to see your faces.
Hey.
Yeah.
What's
How
up?
you doing?
Good. How are you?
How are you?
Good.
Dave, you have any? Gosh, you guys have like 500 and some managed properties. I'm sure you have a few stories you could tell.
Yeah, I got a couple of stories that might be a little too dark to share, but I kind of have a funny one. In Ocala,
I want to hear the dark one.
Me too.
I
All
love
in
how this
favor,
is
raise your
starting
hands.
off with Florida. It has to be a storage facility in Florida. You weirdos in Florida.
yeah,
Was it Pensacola?
it was in Ocala, Florida, and this guy hears voices inside a unit and hears a woman yelling for help. So he takes an axe and he beats up the door trying to get in.
Oh
Can't
no.
get to the door, so he decides to take this car and drive it through the door, hits everything in that unit, pushes it out the back of the unit behind it, out into a vacant lot on the other side. And then he gets out and he was cut up from the car accident and wrote, "I love you" on the door next to that door. And then drove home and took out a bunch of stop signs, hit a couple cars, and there was never anybody inside. He was just there doing drugs.
Oh my gosh.
And because of all of the city property that he destroyed, that's what his insurance covered first. So he didn't have any insurance left to put our building back together or help our tenant. But luckily they had protection on their unit, so they got a little bit of money, but not for everything they damaged.
Hey,
Alex, you got to have a good one from Illinois somewhere.
Oh, I got
His
plenty
kid is
of. I
from
mean,
Kansas.
yeah, mine's Kansas, Jim. Actually, is where mine's at. I was waiting for some people already know it on this call, but my horror story was we were transitioning, or my horror story, not the whole company, just myself, but we were transitioning this store over in southern Kansas. So I drove out there. It was a great drive, great day. Met with the owner because he was an out-of-town owner. We were, transitioning it from the seller, doing our stuff, very normal day. And then we, ended up, we were going to go to dinner. I said, let's go to dinner. And then usually at the end of the day, as you probably would want to do, he said, hey, let's go back in the evening. I want to go check out the lights, make sure the lighting's working, make sure, very normal, as you would. We had a great dinner. We go back, we go to the facility, and there's kind of two parts of this facility. There's like a newer section, there's an older section. So we were at the newer section and the lighting looked good and everything else. So, I ended up getting out of my car for a second with him. He was in a different car. We got out. We were talking about the light fixtures. Well, and of course, you already can probably see the writing on the wall. I left my car running because I didn't think we were going to stay there for very long because I thought we were going to go to the older section. And the owner started walking, and he kind of walked a little further, and he wanted to look at this light fixture and this light fixture and this one. And I'm like, oh, good Lord. So we probably walk about 100 feet down, and that's about it. And lo and behold, I'm like, oh, there's somebody at the property. Like it was about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and it's a smaller town. I'm like, oh, there's somebody on the property. And I said, oh, that kind of looks like my car. Oh, crap. That literally is my car. And some homeless person walking by and saw my car running, went and hopped into it and just drove away and drove right in front of me and just drove off with my car. And then I had to basically be stuck in the middle of Kansas. And oh, by the way, my wallet was in there and my keys were left in there. So I had to do that thing. Like, when you tell your kids, like, no matter the situation, just call me if you ever have a problem. You know how awkward of a call it is to your dad when you go, hey, Dad, can you come pick me up? And he goes, yeah, where are you at? Independence, Kansas. Like, because I couldn't get a rental car because I didn't have a wallet or anything like that.
Man.
And I know Alana's going to say, what's the funniest part of the story? They did find the car 2 weeks later. Just in case you want to know, if your car gets stolen, you want it to be considered a total loss. This did not happen. It came back to me. The gentleman actually worked in they caught him the morning of the state carnival in Kansas. He was going to leave with my car and become a carny and go be a travel with the circus in my car. And he was living out of my car, so they told me to come pick it up. I couldn't get it till a few days later, so it sat out in the Kansas heat for 3 days. And he had literally made a kitchen in the backseat of my car, so he had raw meat back there. He had I mean, he had this thing filled to the brim. He had tools. He had a chainsaw back there. We don't know where the chainsaw came from.
Where'd the food come from? Chainsaw?
Oh, I mean, the cops were on the phone with me and they go, "Hey, did you have multiple cell phones in your car?" I said, "No." "Did you have any like power tools, like a chainsaw or anything?" I said, "It's a small sedan." Like, no, I did not have a chainsaw in my back seat of my car. "And did you have a bunch of extra IDs for anybody else?" I said, "No, I did not have anybody else's IDs or anything." Like, they were asking all these questions, and I got there and it was filled to the brim with just junk, and it was the most disgusting 6-hour drive home ever. I had to stop and clean the whole car first, and then it just smelled I had the windows down the whole way home. With evidence tape. I had police evidence tape going through Missouri when I was driving back because I couldn't get the evidence tape off.
So very funny. So
Yeah.
I've heard this story before from Alex, but then I watched that Dahmer documentary thing, and he's like, "I like pork chops." I was like, man, that's probably how I picture Alex's car smelling, like a fucking pork chops.
So it was. I got it home and I instantly put it on the market for sale.
So-
Like, just immediately.
Alex, what type of person bought it from you?
Oh, and I'm pretty sure, just to really add, thank you, Alana, just to add fuel to the fire here. The person said that came and bought it, I'm pretty sure might have been a drug dealer then, because then they're like, "Oh, we like the car. Can you take all cash?" And I'm like, "I guess." And then they pull out a Ziploc bag full of thousands of dollars in a Ziploc bag. I'm like, this is just par for the course. Whatever. Okay, fine. And it was all real money. I checked it all. It was real. I'm like, don't ask questions. So yeah, so that's my horror story. So there you go. Yeah, so it was just kind of the icing on the cake there.
Wow, that's a good one. Good
At one
one.
of Phil's properties last week, since you were reminding me of homeless people and stealing cars, his manager was walking around doing unit checks and he kept finding like these dirty latex gloves all over the place. Like just like in the streets, would like pick it up, throw it out. He's like, "Where are these coming from?" Like he went and another couple units, came back to the office and found more latex gloves. And so he puts them in the garbage and he turns around and he sees this person in their unit walking out with full colostomy bags and one hooked to him full of what goes in colostomy bags, walking towards the manager, and the manager's like, you can't store those here. You have to get out. Like, he's obviously living in the unit, storing his colostomy bags there. So the homeless man says, okay, he'll get his stuff, he'll throw it away, he'll get out, he'll move out. And so he goes down and he's talking to another tenant, or he goes to the office, another tenant comes up and goes, "I can't find my BMW. I parked my BMW to go grab something from my unit and I came back and it's gone." And so they're like walking the property looking for it. "Are you sure you parked it here?" Come to find out, the homeless man borrowed his car to transport the rest of the colostomy bags from his unit in his BMW to the dumpster to throw out. So he was following through, but he used someone else's transportation. And that was the last I heard of that story. So I don't know what happened next. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it wasn't totaled, but he did ask the manager, he's like, "You have to clean this up," because there was still some in there. And he's like, "I'm not touching it."
That
It
one's
really does roll downhill, huh?
Yeah.
Self-storage, sometimes we feel like we're in an island of one, but we all go through the same stuff. We really do.
Yeah.
All right. Who's had somebody living in their in the last 6 weeks? I have.
Living in the last
Oh,
week.
yeah.
Hey, Katie, welcome. I love your background. Of course, Miss IT over there has got the coolest background ever.
It's a program I paid for, but it's
Hey, listen. Nothing wrong with that, girlfriend. Nothing wrong with that. Katie, do you have any stories?
I mean, I have so many stories. This is similar to the colostomy bag story because we had a guy, and this is my personal scariest moment in storage because it was like genuinely scary for me as far as like risk to harm. But we had this guy who was totally nuts, and his unit had gotten sold at auction. I mean, like 3 months before. And I remember getting really, really yelled at by the people who bought the unit because it turns out it was full of Folgers coffee cans filled with used toilet paper.
Oh,
So don't know what was going on with that. And you couldn't tell because they were like in Rubbermaid bins also. So like it just looked like a unit full of Rubbermaid bins. So obviously this guy was not all there. And so, I mean, I got yelled at by the people who bought it. Like, it was a whole thing. They accused us of knowing it was trash. I was like, you can use the dumpster. We never let people do that. Just whatever. I'm sorry. So then the guy shows up months later. He's like, no, those were my art installations. I need those back. And he's like swinging bolt cutters at everybody, like trying to cut locks off of units, like just totally, totally nuts. And I finally was like, look, dude, you need to stop. And he's like, oh my God. He puts him down. He gives me a hug. I'm so sorry. And I was like, okay.
That is intense.
And then he thanked me, said he loved me, and left the property. And I was
Has
all
he
right.
come back again?
It was like a 5-minute interaction, but it was just one of those things where, you never know who's storing and what their mental state is. And just the colostomy bag thing made me, kind of remember that, because we couldn't find, there was no scent. There was nothing to indicate that this guy was storing such weird stuff. Well, my camera went out.
Alana always says, don't open buckets that are in units.
Never open a bucket. That is always a mistake.
I
Always.
did make that mistake one time in San Francisco. I was inventorying a unit and I was like, all right, let's see what's in the bucket. Holy
Oh, yeah,
cow.
never do that.
My nostrils, I think it took a solid week for that smell to leave. Ugh.
Pro tip, if
I'm
one of those
scared of
buckets
buckets.
ever breaks, the people who clean up dead bodies for crime scenes will also clean that up for you. You can pay them.
Well, I'm now like traumatized. I see a bucket and I'm like, nope. No.
Well, we had an incident like that once, and we hired a crime scene cleanup company to come, and because they do biohazard.
So Jess, you said this wasn't going to be educational, and really Katie is giving us some education on the different things.
That's a tip.
Yeah.
That's a tip.
I did practice it saying we might learn a lot from these stories. All right, so Troy joined us too. Troy, you got some stories for us?
Well, just adding to that, we actually have a game for new hires called Is It Urine?
Get them a
pretty sure that's
UV light.
against
Another pro
HR.
tip: UV light.
Okay, so I can say
Yeah.
I went to one of Troy's facilities and there were some very interesting people outside.
They're just actors. Yes. So, yeah, I actually have 2 stories I'll get through real fast. One would be a tenant who was notoriously locked in after hours. I think she was tired of being lectured by us and paying fines to us. So she decided the best way to exit our property was to call 911 and say she thought there was a dead body in a refrigerator in a unit to get a police response and get the gate open. As soon as they got there and opened the gate, she departed, which started my wonderful night of, absolutely nothing. But that was one of my horror stories. The other one goes back to, we had a brand new assistant. It was their first day on the job. I was working with them that day training. They're doing a lock check and they come across a unit with a blue tarp in front of it. And, we've just told everyone, just open units. If something's like that, just open it. You don't have to say anything, just open it. And he opens it, and it is a woman doing a, per minute live stream to her followers.
Nice.
So that was his most amazing first day on the job, and decided we wanted to terminate her contract. And the phone call to her husband, who was a local police officer, was very enjoyable. Yeah.
I'm
Wow.
not sure, when John Lindsay wrote that book of self-storage being sexy, apparently our tenants have thought this for years because they keep doing dirty things in those units.
I would say, I've been in the industry now 9 years, and I would say I've broken up easily 30 rendezvous going on in storage units over that time frame. I don't know. I just don't get the, hey, honey, let's go to my storage unit. But
There's
So, Jim-
some creative ones. So yeah, they're interesting.
Jim, that can go back to your next question is, if you go around the room about what everybody can do, who's broken up a rendezvous inside of a storage unit?
yeah.
I haven't had the luck of that yet, or the pleasure, whatever you call it.
Yep,
Misfortune.
we had some videos, and I guess it wouldn't be a rendezvous. It was a solo rendezvous. We went into a unit and a woman was making videos with herself. And yeah. Pretty weird.
Weird place to do any of those activities, to be honest with you.
So speaking of things in containers and auctions. I just read a story in Pensacola, which I thought you were going to say earlier, Alex. Someone bought an auction because there's office furniture. There were also there were a couple deep freezers and containers, and it turns out it was someone who does autopsies. So they had over 100 different people's body parts in different containers, like styrofoam containers, plastic tubs, basically all over. And he ended up going to prison for 5 years for it because apparently that's I don't know.
We had one like that about 10 years ago, where we had a mortician who was supposed to be cremating people who did not cremate the bodies. He was like a week behind. So like if you had your body cremated, you would actually probably get the person who was supposed to be cremated the week before. You didn't get the right person's ashes, but he was behind. So he was storing about a week's worth of bodies in a storage unit, embalmed and all, but ready to be cremated. And he was giving people the wrong ashes.
Well, if you're talking about ashes, I had a store in Georgia that we're back in the day doing a live auction. One of the guys was there and opened it up, and he saw an urn sitting on whatever the dresser. He had to buy that unit, and I said to his wife, I said, why? She goes, his sole purpose in life right now is to find storage units that have urns in them and buy them because he wanted to be the keeper of the lost souls. She said they had 62 urns in their house, and none of them were their relatives.
You know how many storage operators would love that man's address to just drop off the random?
Oh yeah, they just mail them all to him.
Oh, that's the worst thing, right? Because then if you find them and if you try to be nice and pull it for the person whose unit it was, they never show up to pick them up.
Nope.
So we've had ashes in, like our company units sometimes for years.
I've been told you can drop them off.
Oh my gosh.
So we have to have them we're in control of them in Michigan for 100 years. So a lot of times if you take them to a funeral home, they'll do a mass burial. So that helps a lot. But who would leave Aunt Ethel in a storage unit to begin with? Where's it?
Maybe she wasn't a very good aunt. I don't know.
Alani, you have to tell your children what you told yesterday about your children.
Yeah, so I've already warned my kids because my husband and I are both being cremated. And I'm like, I swear to God, if you put me in a storage unit, A, first pay for it. B, if I end up in a storage unit, I'm haunting you at like the most inconvenient times of your life. I will pop up and make things weird because I deal with so many ashes all day long. I probably get at least one phone call a day. Hey, I bought this unit and there's ashes in it. It's either Fido or, grandma in the storage unit. We get a lot of dog ashes and a lot of human remains. It's like, who is storing these people in there? And they're upset. You sold grandma. You stored grandma. What's wrong with you?
Well, we'll make sure, Alana, we'll make sure they mix your ashes in with the concrete and just pour a whole slab for a property, and then you will be the storage facility.
You make jokes about it, but we've actually, since my family's 6 kids, and we're blended, to avoid potentially one of our stepchildren flushing the parent, my husband and I are going to be combined, so that reduces my risk of being flushed.
There you go.
Being flushed.
You're taking Jeff with you when you go, right?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
It's a team effort.
These stories are crazy. All right, so I'll share one with you. So Olivia, my 18-year-old, was a cheerleader through high school. And we would go to the games all the time. And there was always this really, really nice cheer dad. He was so involved, the nicest guy you could ever meet. And he was a local contractor. And there's this story that pops up in the news of this elderly woman that he was doing work on at her house. And she went missing, and he was the last person to see her. So they start to investigate him and everything, and come to find out through the video surveillance of the local self-storage facility that he was using to store his contracting goods and buckets and everything. They were able to identify through the gate access and what he was taking out of his truck and everything, all of the evidence that they needed to, in fact, prove that he was the one who murdered her and disposed of her body in a landfill. So he was bringing in buckets and cement and everything to get rid of the body. And he's unfortunately sitting in our local jail waiting trial, but they are going for the death penalty on him. And I mean, this is someone like I sat at cheer games next to, went to dinner with, thought he was just the nicest person ever. And yeah, that's what
You didn't try to date him, did you?
Well, no. I did not. I steered away from that one.
How many operators have had the police come to their storage facility investigating a murder or disappearance, and they are fully convinced it's in that unit? Because that seems like a common theme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, no one?
I feel lucky now. We just get them looking for drugs. Like
I had one looking
I
for a
sell
person.
those
Yeah.
thanks to Jim.
Yeah.
We should get a cut, Alana. We should
No.
split the commission.
I feel like I saw on one of the Facebook groups just a few weeks ago, someone had gone into the lien and auction process and they've opened the unit, come to find cages and cages and cages of rats. I think it was like
Yeah.
I saw that.
you all see that? It was like they're thinking it was like a person that like had like maybe like a reptile shop, and that's where like they were breeding the rats to like feed to the reptiles. But I mean, obviously, if they're going to the point of auction, they haven't accessed that unit in a minute. So I don't know if the rats were alive or dead, but that's another one that probably didn't smell too good when you.
So I had one unit. I was in Oakland, California, and it was a loss of some sort. And so I'm cleaning out the unit, and I found like, you know, those little baby jars, like the baby jar food, the food. I found one of those jars filled with human teeth. And so I was like, this is like, I got a lot of kids, and occasionally you'll like save the tooth or whatever, which I think is gross. I don't do that. But I found an entire jar of teeth. We had to turn it over to the police, and they were investigating a serial killer, thinking it was all of his trophies. And I was like, he was the person was in prison for assault with a deadly weapon. But yeah, we found a jar of human teeth.
Were they adult teeth?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't sound good.
Full, like, you know, those like not even just the newborn little baby jars, like the big
like the
ones,
toddler
big,
baby food jars.
Yeah, filled with adult teeth. Like some had like fillings and stuff. It was disgusting. I was like, ew. So I brought it up front, and I was like, what exactly do I do with teeth? And so we ended up having a police officer come out to collect some guns, because we were in Oakland, California. We were finding a lot of guns in units. And we asked the police officer, like, teeth? You want the teeth? And yeah, they investigated it for a serial killer. I never found out if it really was a serial killer or just a weird tooth fetish, but.
Well, get your pendulum out and start asking questions over there, you little.
Oh, we didn't know.
So has anybody ever found live hand grenades?
What?
Nope.
We
They found a
unit,
disabled
but
bazooka.
we had a unit go to auction, and there were World War II hand grenades in the unit. That his guy said, well, my wife wouldn't let me keep in the house, so I put them here.
So Jim, I got an even better one for
We
you.
called the
Did
police.
you modify your lease to say no grenades?
We called the police. They came down. And they're like, oh, we're not touching this. So they actually called the local army barracks and had to bomb people come out to take. You know, they said they were harmless, but I'm like, no,
Why is that the theory, though, Jim? Because this is where it gets to my story here. Is why is it? Oh, these deadly weapons. I don't want them in my house, so I'm going to go put them in a storage unit instead. Because literally, this happened to. Our manager was out for the weekend. I just said, I'll stop by the facility. It was one of our remote properties. I'll go check it out. I drive the whole property, and of course, there's one door. The latch has been open. The door is wide open. I'm like, oh, there must have been a break-in or something. Something must have happened. Yeah. I call the tenant, and it's a bad sign. And she just goes, oh, no, did they get my guns? I go, so somebody knows you have guns in there? She goes, no, it was the tenant next to me when I was there. He saw me when I was putting my stuff in there. So she was right. It was the tenant next to her that broke into the unit and took her rifle and her shotgun that she put in there because she didn't want to have it at home because she has kids around the house. So she left it there. So the moral of the story, which is probably the funniest part, is she actually, long story short, She went and paid a homeless person because she didn't like how slow the cops were working on this. She went and paid a homeless person to see if she knew the guy that she thinks it was. And she drove around all of the town with the homeless person in the bed of her truck to point out where the homeless person thinks the person who stole him lives. And they go, oh yeah, it's that little shed back there. Well, that homeless person was right. And she gave her $20 and they called the police and they found the rifle there. But they have not found the shotgun still. But here is Rhonda with her rifle. Oh, you can't see it in there, but there's Rhonda and her rifle. If you can kind of, I know that's bad with the screen here, but so that was our moral story. So she at least got one of her guns back, but there is still a gun missing and she can't have those in the storage unit, by the way.
All right, Troy, what are you sharing here, bud?
I know. I'm like, what is this?
So this is from 2 weeks ago, right before one of our company meetings. So I put into our presentation. We are Carson City location, Nevada. They were inventorying unit for auction, and that is a depth charge.
Oh my God.
So it only blows up underwater. It's fine.
Yeah, it's not underwater, so we're fine. And the manager was funny. I said, if they weigh 100 pounds, they're inert. If they weigh 200 pounds, they're live. And he goes, I'm not touching it.
Oh.
So we ended up with the bomb squad there. It was inert. It wasn't marked as inert. And they go for $600. So if it goes to auction, we'll make some money.
Holy mackerel. Thanks for sharing that. That's scary.
Chad, you got to have a good story for Michigan. Come on. You got to have something good with snow or ice or anything.
Well, so but last year, right before ISS show, the kid that found a couple of the storage unit, he goes, there's like smoke coming out of a building. What's going on with that? I'm like, so I rush up there, and a grown man had his rock collection
Heard this story.
stored in there.
And his what?
Well, rock collection?
Like rocks that you
Like
that are in the dirt.
rocks.
Okay.
Dirt, yeah. So he won't respond to me. He won't respond to the cops. He won't respond to the fire investigator. Won't respond. Finally, he admitted that he was smoking a joint and he left it there, and it was hot and it self combusted with the marijuana, and he sealed the racks. It caused 10 units with smoke damage, damaged his unit. But the weird thing of it is, his unit right next door was full of pianos, never even old wooden pianos, never even touched them. But half of his unit burned, but we had smoke damage to about 9 other units. But yeah, his adult rock collection. And I laugh at it being a rock collection. I just inventoried a unit I just threw online for Alana, another rock collection. So Michigan must be a good place for rock collectors.
Is there a rock collector club? You can Google rock collector club in Michigan. You can join. You got rocks.
I don't know. Yeah. So yeah. So I'm like, I've never had a fire before. So I call Sue Havel and I'm like, what the hell do I do? I'm like, I'm getting ready to go out of town for the ISS show. How do you, I kind of knew how to handle it, but I'm like, I knew she had been through a fire before. I'm like, that's not something you can have training on, is how to prepare to deal with tenants with fire and smoke damage. So that was probably the worst thing I've ever had to deal with.
So
who's had a fire?
we have one, and actually this ties into Halloween because I totally forgot this happened until Chad was telling the story. We had a tenant who was storing, I won't say satanic ritual items because I don't think they were genuinely Satanists, but this is in South Texas. There's some weird things that happened down there. So they had a shrine built of hay bales surrounded by candles and were doing some sort of ritual. And surprise, the hay bales burst into flames because the candles eventually got too small. So it burned down one of our buildings entirely because of whatever weird ritual magic thing they were trying to do. We all happened to be in town for a company meeting in the same area, so we got to go see the damages. But I mean, I think we lost 8 units total. I mean, total devastation to 8 units for fire. The fire department thankfully got there really quickly. I mean, they were able to put the fire out, but the building was still a total loss. I mean, with how hot that fire was, it warped the structure of the building. But that was, we lost a building to Satanism.
Hey, listen, we do tenant insurance over here at the SBOA, so anyone that doesn't have tenants.
You all were insuring this property. I'm sure we had some claims from it. It was last year.
Right. And it wasn't an act of God.
No, not an act of God.
I walked into a storage facility. I'm walking up and I was like, man, this place smells like barbecue. So I'm like sniffing around, I was like, God, there's no restaurants around here. No, a meth lab had blown up and blew up the facility.
Nice.
But they were insured by SBOA, so yeah. I called
Lana
Jessica.
called me. She's like, the manager has not even worked here for 2 weeks and is literally standing there like a deer in headlights and has no idea who to call, what to do. Alana literally sees our brochures and goes, well, you have to have insurance. You might want to call the SBOA.
So we
He was
just had a
letting people
fire.
in the building.
Oh gosh, go ahead, Alex. What'd you say?
We just had a fire like just a couple months ago, and kind of similar to what Chad just said. It was a very similar concept, but even worse. So these two younger kids came to break into the storage units. They were looking to see if they could find a cheap lock or whatever. They broke a cheap lock off, opened the door. They're climbing into the unit. We can see them on camera climbing into the unit, kind of looking around or whatever. Well, while they're trying to climb up, they had at the front of the unit a mattress and a box spring. The kid was smoking a cigarette while they were trying to break into the unit there. And they were ashing it all over the box spring inside of the unit. So they literally put the cigarette out on the box spring. They go and you see them walk the rest of the property. They didn't even know they did it. So the building catches on fire and they're just still walking around the property like, and we're going to keep looking for locks, see what we can find or whatever. And then they come around the corner to that same aisle again. They look and the building's ablaze. And you kind of see the oh shit look of, oh God. And then they run out of the property. And luckily we caught them on camera and they're arrested and everything, but burned 10 units down and, total loss on that building again too. So that was a 2 o'clock in the morning phone call that we got. So that was fun.
Teenage kid? Is that what you're saying?
Teenage kids on a cigarette.
Way to start your life off with arson charges.
Do you guys remember when Storage Wars first became big on TV, right? Break-ins were happening everywhere. We had a property, they broke in and they cut 22 locks. They didn't realize that yellow locks meant vacant. They cut 21, they cut 21 yellow locks. Then they left.
Goodness gracious. Well,
22nd time is the charm.
Yeah.
I'll say, what's the largest amount of break-ins somebody has had in one fall swoop?
66 earlier. Well, no, last week. 66.
Did they get anything, Katie?
That we can tell, no. They just broke into a bunch of units and took nothing.
What the?
I assume they knew somebody storing there and they're looking for something specific.
Yeah. Was that okay? So I just saw a recent photo. Maybe it was
Those are the pictures I sent. I showed you guys at the show.
Yeah, okay, I remember that. Okay,
Yeah.
where they had like He-Man strength and
Yes.
ripping
Yeah, they were
doors.
just pulling the doors out of the tracks and they were just.
I do have one more story.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
I hired this woman in Alabama. This was probably like 5 years ago, and she was like 25 years old, and she left on lunch and just never came back.
Oh, God.
And I finally got a hold of her, and she said she just couldn't work anymore because she had PTSD coming back. Because she was at work one day, had a job before she worked with us, and one of the tenants grabbed her and stuffed her in his trunk and drove for 2.5 hours before she figured out how to open the trunk, and she got away. And she knew who he was, and he was investigated for another woman's disappearance like 10 years before that, but they could never get any information on him.
Holy moly.
That's pretty scary.
That's super scary. I don't think I'd come back to work either if that
I
happened.
Yeah.
think she still even tried to get another job in storage.
I know.
We had a similar employee. I wonder if it's the same person, but she said she was locked in a storage unit and attacked by a tenant once before at a prior storage job and then was still working storage, which I would never do if that had happened to me. So
No.
I was buying everybody those panic buttons after that.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so
And then
who's got the best weird interview story? There's got to be one.
Oh, I mean, I have one. The guy, we literally 5 minutes into it, we knew we weren't going to proceed any further. He didn't change his battery to his smoke detector, and those things chirp like when they're dead, like every 30 seconds. And finally, I'm like, you need to go get a double or whatever, a C or D level battery if you're going to keep interviewing on Zoom, because I heard nothing that you said about yourself. All I heard was the chirping. That was my horror story of a Zoom job interview.
I got a good one that goes back to my old days at Devon. We're interviewing, and a girl comes in, we're interviewing her, and we're talking about our previous jobs. I said, well, if I was to call one of your previous employers and ask them, what was your best work ethic or whatever, she goes, well, you can't call the first one. I'm like, oh, okay. And she said, you see, well, that was my mom's company, and my sister had me arrested for stealing money.
I love her transparency.
Yeah. So I said, okay. She goes, and the second one you really shouldn't call either. I'm like, why? Morbid curiosity. I said, why? She goes, let's see. The wife fired me because she found I was sleeping with her husband, who was the boss.
Oh,
and I'm
my.
like, okay, great. I didn't even dare to ask for the third one because I'm like, this can't get any worse.
And
At
those
least
are our
she's
best
honest.
references.
And I'm like, what? It's like, I'm sitting there with I had a trainee area manager with me, and we're just sitting there looking at each other like, what the hell?
The third one is in a bucket in the storage unit somewhere.
Yeah, seriously.
With a
You
lot
can't
of
get all of
teeth
that.
sitting on top.
I think the general text and tone here, context and tone is like, make sure your facilities are secure, right? Motion detectors, good light, security cameras for when these type of things happen. So yeah, we'll make this a little bit educational as I say that at the conclusion of this. Because, hey, listen, I'm a scaredy cat. I am not going into a multi-unit or multi-level facility late at night on the top floor in the very back. I don't care if it has motion detectors and lights in there. I don't like all those long, creepy hallways. I'll scare myself silly. So.
See, my philosophy is nothing good happens at a storage property after gate hours, so you just shouldn't have anybody with 24-hour access. Just decide your time, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever.
Amen
Yes.
to that.
Nothing good happens at 3 o'clock in the morning.
No.
Nothing.
Oh, only for somebody did fight me once on that comment I made. And they're like, well, what if they're a contractor and they got an early job? I'm like, okay, maybe an exception there, but like 24/7 access is not something that I'm a fan of either.
Chad, you just changed yours, didn't you?
We're in the process of switching it, yes.
Yeah.
Were you 24/7, Chad?
At a few of our locations, and we're going to bring it back down to 6 to 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's smart. That's plenty enough time. They need to plan in advance.
Yep.
And, you know,
We charge extra, and then we don't give it to everybody. They have to have like a good reason why they need it.
that makes
I have
sense.
a soft spot for the fishing boats. Those are the only ones I'm okay with because I will go fishing at 4 a.m. to head out. So
You know you will. Catching gators and all kinds of stuff. over
Katie,
there.
you got any good gator stories for us? Where's your boots, by the way? You get the boots
you
yet?
know, I still haven't gotten the hides back. So I got the heads right before SSA, but I haven't gotten the hides back. So eventually, everybody who meets me for the rest of my life will have to hear about how I got those boots once I get them made. So,
Heck
I want to see pictures.
oh yeah, you'll see him in person eventually. Come on,
You plan for New Orleans.
I
That'd be
would
great.
100%.
Walk around New Orleans. We'll all go in a day early and walk around New Orleans, get some hurricanes, and
There you go.
a great idea.
I'll just bring one of the alligator heads with me. We'll just carry it around. The smaller one.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, we are right at 4:02. We've been together for an hour. Thank you guys so much for joining us today and sharing your horror stories, and the audience that was watching and listening and that joined us or even shared their stories in the comments. We appreciate it. There's a lot more out there. So this will be on our Facebook channel live. You can go back and rewatch it if you want to, add in your stories. And again, have a great weekend, everyone. Happy Halloween on Monday. And I hope everyone gets lots of good candy if they go out there trick-or-treating.
Thank you, everyone.
Everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Happy
you,
Halloween.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.